Hey guys, welcome back to another Real Numbers video. Now today I am once again joined by MJ from GeekList TV. Please make sure to go check out MJ if you like the Dragon Ball content that I make as well as this type of stuff. I mean, he also covers movies from time to time, but it's not necessarily his main focus. Anyway, MJ, would you please say hi to everybody?
What's up, guys? MJ here.
Anyway, guys, so today we're going to try to keep it a little short because there's just a whole lot to talk about in terms of actual predictions and everything else. But you know what I was thinking is I wanted to do a kind of a special Real Numbers video for this particular Monday because we are going into March 2017. And March 2017 looks pretty badass, honestly. These movies coming out look like they're going to be straight up blockbusters. At least a couple, like almost every single week we have a straight up potential hopeful blockbuster. And you know, before we get into this, I just want to direct everyone, MJ and I already did a very long video about Logan's potential box office run. I don't necessarily think a whole lot's changed since that, but it was done about a month ago and it just only posted about 2 weeks ago. So you know, take that with a grain of salt, but I will tell everyone, please make sure to go check that out if you want to hear us talk about that in great detail in the description section below, along with MJ's link that will also be there. So we're just going to skip over Logan. I'm pretty sure we were talking about maybe making like $60 million opening weekend, $200 million worldwide, domestically, and then probably, you know, competing with Deadpool to be the biggest X-Men movie worldwide, but we're just going to really have to wait and see. Personally with that, I feel like it's actually kind of become a little bit more. So, you know, with just the amazing hype around that movie, I think that people are kind of expecting it to do a little bit better domestically than we originally thought. But before we go on to any other movies, do you have anything else you want to say about Logan, MJ? I know you're really waiting to see it.
My friend James Oster, who's a film critic, I've had him before on the podcast. He works with Collider. He worked with the former AMC Movie Talk, etc., Joe Blow. He told me in a message privately that he thinks this was a masterpiece. So there you go with that. And he's a very hard man to please. So the fact that he told me Logan was a masterpiece, that just got me even more hyped up. So yeah.
No, I'm not necessarily doubting that. I honestly feel like that's something that it looks good. It looks really, really good, honestly. But anyway, we'll just go on here. So the next one we see actually coming out in particular the next week, March 10th, 2017. Like I said, we're just going to go through all of the March movies pretty quickly here, just trying to get the whole scope of all the big budget.
You should title this video March Madness, bro.
Oh yeah, that's a good title. Anyway, guys, the next movie is Kong Skull Island. And before we get a little bit further into this, one thing that we've actually seen, I want to make everything clear, is it seems like Warner Brothers is trying to make Kong kind of an extended universe with Godzilla, you know, their recent reboot of the Godzilla movies. And last time I heard, they were going to put a stinger at the end of the credits, possibly setting up Godzilla 2. So we have an extended universe here coming out, you know, the second entry in an extended universe coming out in March. And, you know, MJ, what are your thoughts on this movie just in particular? And then we'll get into basically, you know, predictions about how much it's going to make.
Samuel L. Jackson's in it. Not much else to say. Looking forward to it.
I'm honestly really hoping that it's better than the last one. In terms of the last one being,
I didn't think it was as bad as people made it seem to be, but yeah, a lot of people hate it.
You mean the Godzilla or the Peter Jackson film?
Peter Jackson film.
No, it wasn't as bad as everyone says it is, but it wasn't necessarily good. Look, Kong is one of those things that just can't get a break. We've seen so many adaptations of this film going on and on and on, almost every single 10, 15, 20 years since the original came out. And it's not that they don't do well, but it seems like people keep spending, you know, huge amounts of money, at least for the time, you know, inflation, you know, in terms of inflation and everything, just trying to make this thing work, make this thing into a franchise, make this thing, you know, make this baby purr. And it just doesn't seem like it actually happens. And, you know, just getting into the more predictions about, I don't necessarily think this film, look, Samuel Jackson's in it, John C. Reilly's in it. We have some We have some pretty awesome casts just in terms of everything. I don't necessarily think this movie is going to light up the box office. Pretty much, just like, honestly, this movie, as big as it is and as much money as they want it to make, it is sandwiched in between not only Logan, which is shaping up to be, like MJ said, as a masterpiece, and also Beauty and the Beast the very next week. That is looking to be like a very, very rare Universal blockbuster. Especially something like this, like very rare in terms of actual money potential that it can possibly make. So I think it's kind of screwed. Not that it's going to make big numbers, but I've been hearing rumblings and everything. I'm thinking like 40, 35, 40, even 45, just really low or very highballing it. 45 million opening weekend, which isn't bad, but then just barely cracking 100 million domestically. I'm just going to say that.
See, I actually think it'll do good opening weekend. I think probably around 70 million. I'll say that, bro. Actually, I'll go up to around 60, 70 million opening weekend just due to the fact of the hype, because there is some hype around there and there is a big fan base. But I think once word gets around at the film, I'm looking forward to it, but I'm not expecting much from it. Like with Logan, I was already expecting it to be a good film, and then now I'm expecting it to be a masterpiece, thanks to my friend James, that fucker. So I'm expecting it to be a really good movie. With Kong, I'm looking forward just to see, Samuel Jackson, and I'm a huge fan. I do like some of the actors in the film. Looking forward to it, but I was never expecting it to be a good film. So I think once word goes around it's not that much of a spectacular Universal movie that's going to be one of the best movies of all time. I think it might die down. So I think domestically it might actually go a bit down. And then once we get worldwide, it'll probably be even less, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, I'm thinking worldwide. It's just so hard to always kind of gauge worldwide numbers. Honestly, I would say, I think one thing that would make them happy is 350, 400 million worldwide.
I think it's gonna get that.
Obviously,
I'm predicting around 250 million worldwide. Yeah.
Really? Oh man, like that might be something. Just to put it into perspective, like I said, kind of an extended universe, kind of a sequel to Godzilla, but not really. I don't necessarily know how they're going to make this work, but it is something that they've been planning for a while. So just to put it in perspective, Godzilla made $93 million its opening weekend, went on to make $200 million domestically and $530 million internationally, or worldwide, I guess. Worldwide, $530 million. So off of a budget of $160 million. So something kind of similar to Kong, but I don't necessarily think Kong will do that well. But going on, because like I said, the very next week, so we've already had, in March, we've already had Logan open, we've had Kong open, and then we have the big daddy of them all, Beauty and the Beast. I didn't think this movie was going to make as much money as everyone says it is. I know people universally love Beauty and the Beast. I know people grew up with it and all this other stuff. But this whole kind of trend ever since, I guess you could say, I would really say Alice in Wonderland started it, although it's not necessarily. Alice in Wonderland was the first one who did it. There was other films before that, but Disney really started putting their weight towards like $200 million adaptations of these like darker versions of their old animated classics. So, when you had like Alice in Wonderland come in, and it was making somewhere around like 330 million, breaking $1 billion worldwide. People thought, oh man, this is the next big thing. This is exactly what Disney needs. And that was like right on the cusp of actually Disney buying Marvel and all this other stuff. So Disney was about to rule the world with their remakes of these old princess movies, or the Grimm Tale movies, and then the Marvel stuff and Pixar, and they've pretty much proved that that's exactly what they're doing. If last year's anything to kind of walk away from. But at the same time, like no other one of these Grimm's Tale remakes has actually done as good as they really should have. In any particular point that they actually could have. Like, the Cinderella movie didn't necessarily break the bank. The Maleficent movie, while it did pretty well, did not necessarily break the bank. But this movie seems to be breaking all those. People are excited to see this film, and I can't necessarily blame them. I grew up with this film too. MJ, what are your thoughts on Beauty and the Beast?
Yeah, man, people are excited for it on many social media platforms. I see the excitement for it. I see like screenshots posted up on Instagram. People are extremely hyped for it. It's an anime classic, like you said. It's an iconic story. I'll go as far as to say that it's one of those iconic stories that people just know, the Beauty and the Beast. It's in common language, where people, if you see an ugly guy fucking a pretty girl, people just that's what they associate it with. Oh, that's the whole Beauty and the Beast, situation going on. It's iconic. That's all I'm trying to put over. It's an iconic story. People know about it, and I'll say this. I'm just gonna go ahead and jump ahead here. I'm gonna say at least 60 plus million. It could probably hit even more than that opening weekend, and I feel like worldwide, domestically, I'll say about 200-300, and worldwide it'll definitely get over $500 million, bro. It'll be, yeah.
I'm gonna floor you right now because projections. This isn't even me. This isn't even me being bullish or anything. I'm really bullish when it comes to I'm not necessarily bullish. I try to keep very conservative with where I actually put my predictions. I don't like to be wrong. And if I'm wrong, I don't like to be wrong that I overshot it a lot. So when I first was talking about this, I was like, yeah, guys, this is going to be one of the biggest films of the year. Sure, I'm fine with that. One of the top 10, go back and look at my top 10 predictions a couple months back. That was my top 10. It's yeah, it's going to be on there. It's going to be one of the top 10. But I put it around that. I was like, maybe 200 million, maybe 250 million. Really up there, maybe 800 million, worldwide. I don't know. But let me look. This isn't even my projections. I'm just gonna say people right now are projecting around 140, 150 million opening weekend, leading up to maybe possibly a 400 plus million run, 450 million plus run. So domestically, not worldwide. So we're looking at a potential $1 billion film here. And look, it's not that this doesn't happen in March. It's just, it's rare. I think the last time it actually did happen was Cinderella. You can correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong, but I don't necessarily think I'm wrong. Not Cinderella, I'm sorry, Alice in Wonderland. Not Cinderella was that good. But Alice in Wonderland actually came in at $1 billion. And that was right off of the whole Avatar 3D picture hype and everything. It was basically kind of, it played into the hands of the entire, this is the future of filmmaking and entertainment, which if you've been kind of a fan about this stuff anytime, or if you're old enough, you know that, this 3D comes and goes. It will never, ever catch on, no matter how much money they spent on it. So, anyway, it's just weird to me. It's honestly very weird to me that this movie is expected to make as much as it does. Not that I'm saying that it doesn't necessarily deserve it. Not that it, like you said, it's not necessarily classic as it is. Just weird to me because it's not something that I would ever expect to make 400 plus, possibly $500 million worldwide. Does this movie have that much of kind of a mainstay in terms of fan love? Are we in that era where the 90s is the only thing that matters? I mean, look at this. This is the whole thing coming out. Is the 90s is the only thing that matters this March. Yeah, I mean, I just want everyone, if you're listening, to go into the comment section below and tell us whether the 90s are the only thing that matters. Because like I said, we got Logan, we got Godzilla, which was Godzilla kind of parable, or kind of connected, which was one of the things that was kind of popular again in the 90s with the whole Roland Emmerich remake. Then we got Beauty and the Beast, which is a 90s film. Then we got Power Rangers is the next thing we're going to talk about. Power Rangers.
Everything from the past is coming back to bite us in the ass, man.
Yeah, everything after it's a trope, man. Everything after 97 is never allowed to die again, ever, including Power Rangers, which will never, ever, ever die. But Power Rangers, man, what are your thoughts? Just in terms of quality, what are your thoughts? Because I know, my idea on this is probably a little bit different than everyone else.
Yeah, a lot of people fucking hate it. That's what I've seen.
A lot of people hate it.
I've seen, I think even our friend Zion has said that the trailers look like shit and the movie is shit. That's what he said. He thinks the movie looks like shit. So a lot of people seem to hate it. I'm a bit in the middle. I mean, I saw Power Rangers as a kid. I grew up watching the series. Some points in time I even binge watched the series when they would have marathons on TV. So I know the old school Japanese Power Rangers, which I think are actually pretty cool. But anyways, I just feel like it does get a lot of shit and people are hating on it, but I can see it doing all right. I mean, what do you think?
Honestly, look, this is a movie made by Lionsgate. I am a huge, huge Lionsgate fan. If anybody has been kind of following my channel, you know that I'm a huge Saw fan.
Yep.
I respect and encourage anyone to support Lionsgate whenever they possibly can. Personally, and this isn't even just my hype fanboyism for Lionsgate, which makes no sense. I mean, obviously, I don't know anyone else who just like diehard fan support anything that one studio does just because it's a studio and not because it has any creative potential or not. Which I digress. I feel like they do, honestly. I feel like they are on the forefront of not only creativity in terms of filmmaking, but also television, considering the fact that they had hands, they had their fingers in, you know, Mad Max, or not Mad Max. They had their fingers in Mad Men and Hannibal and all the other like awesome television. Almost anything you can name, they were actually had some involvement with. So yeah, all that aside, I want Power Rangers to do really well. They've talked about doing about 7 films if they could. This is their shot, man. Like they've been waiting around. They made their name with Saw. They made their hype with Saw. They got enough money to basically start buying up the property for the YA novels with, you know, with the Hunger Games, which did really well for them for a couple of years. And so they were able to actually buy Summit Entertainment, which a lot of people were hating at the time. I was fucking losing my fanboy mind over that because I thought it was going to be awesome to finally put them up there with the big leagues. They are finally part of the big 7, and MGM's kind of taken a step down for the most part, and Lionsgate has taken that step up and is still an independent studio for the most part, biggest one in the country, you know, playing with the big boys, making big money with them, and this is their, you know, the whole YA thing has kind of come down. They're finally remaking the Saw films, but who knows how much money those are actually going to make. This is their chance to actually get some nostalgia, to make their own superhero franchise that can run multiple films over. And personally, all that aside, I really liked Power Rangers growing up. This is a film for me, and I'm not too jaded at this point to actually feel like it's going to be bad. I've liked what I've seen thus far, and I'm really hoping for a good run. That being said, I honestly don't see it making around, I see maybe domestically $100 million. I think what they're going to be really focusing on is some really good showings in Japan and China. I think that's really what they're going to be focusing on.
I think I've cut this rant before on your channel, but I honestly feel like people shit so much on Power Rangers, but at the same time, it's one of those crazy and wacky, fun action comedies that people of all ages can watch, in my opinion. And I just feel like it is it's their plan, it's their way to get into this whole DC Universal shit, this whole cinematic Marvel universe, this whole crazy Universal things that companies are going with now. It's their way to get into it. The way Lionsgate can get into it is with Power Rangers, because think about it, Power Rangers has so many different stories to go off of. You can literally take them through time travel. You can do space. You can do, you know, like different parts of the world. You can do so much stuff with them, and you can also like just change the actors. You can do a set of Power Rangers in space, and you can fluctuate them. You can even lead it up to like one big thing with like the Avengers, you know, where you have like all the Red Rangers and all the Power Rangers come together to take on one big entity. There's so many stories they can go off of. The merchandise, you know what I mean? They can keep this going. It's a great series to get a hold of and capitalize on it and make it a thing in Hollywood and make it a thing, make a cinematic Power Ranger universe. But at the same time though, I'm a bit weird on the trailers. I've seen them. I'm okay with them. I don't think they're as bad as people make them seem to be, but they're alright, and I kind of agree with you. I'm thinking probably 100 million, maybe even a bit less domestically. Worldwide, probably, bro, I don't see them cracking over $500 million, bro. They're probably gonna do under 400 million. They could, man, though. If it becomes a hit in Japan or like in China, like you said, maybe, but you know.
Oh, we've seen that. Like, look, you know, it's been growing. China, Japan, and Russia, and all those film markets have been growing up over the last couple of years. I wouldn't be very surprised if this they hit really big in China, really big in Japan. That being said, I mean, we got some big ass competition. Not just talking about Power Rangers in general, but we got Paramount and DreamWorks. Paramount and DreamWorks. Honestly, basically vying for the same exact audience, you know, going for that Japanese audience the very next week. So we'll jump into that. But like I said, I'm not even thinking of $500 million with Power Rangers. I think that they should be happy with. They're gonna have to be happy with about $350 million at most. I really hate that. I really hate that because I couldn't, like I've said, I've liked what I've seen thus far. I really want this to do as well as possible. And honestly, it's just, if it is going to do that well, it is. If it's not, it isn't. I feel like this movie could do really well if it wasn't up against such huge competition. And this is a very, very crowded month. Because, look, we've been talking here about for 21 minutes or so. Like, we're not even done. Like, this is a big month. This is one of the biggest months that we've had in a really long time. And to think about this month actually being not in a summer month is kind of crazy. But with that being said, we're just going to jump up into the last week of March, which is very busy. We've got 4 films coming out, but only 2 really worth talking about are the ones we're actually going to talk about here. First of all, just really quick, we're going to talk about The Boss Baby. Alec Baldwin playing the Boss Baby. I don't know if you've seen the trailers, MJ.
I actually have not.
Okay, so this will be quick. Look, DreamWorks Animation is one of the better animation. Honestly, they were kind of there competing with Pixar back in the early days. It was always like, oh, Pixar makes really good films, but they kind of have a counterbalance with DreamWorks that are not very good. The problem with it is now DreamWorks has actually grown up. And they are making awesome films. The whole Kung Fu Panda films, I feel, is where it began. And then How to Train Your Dragon is also a very heartwarming series and everything. They are making some really good, heartfelt films the same way that Pixar does. A little less emotional, a little less, just kind of on the nose. It's a little more on the nose, I think. But Boss Baby doesn't necessarily look like one of those films. I might be thoroughly surprised. I can't wait to see it. It's going to be funny. It looks funny. But at the same time, it's weird because they've been doing not very well for themselves. They used to make over $100 million easily. People were really enthusiastic about seeing this. I think Illumination from over at Universal, with the Despicable Me and the Minions and all their movies doing overly well with each and every single one. I don't necessarily understand why they do so well. I think those movies kind of represent the old days of DreamWorks, where it's just kind of surface level entertainment made directly for kids, not necessarily for anyone else other than that demographic, and they don't necessarily age well, but that's just my opinion. I feel like DreamWorks has been hurt very much by them, because DreamWorks, like Illumination, has that same, or started up with that same, like, yeah, it's good, but it's serviceable for kids, not for anyone else kind of mentality. And when they decided to grow up and when they actually started putting real resources and real effort into their storytelling abilities, people had already moved on to something that was a little bit more surface level, because DreamWorks just had that reputation of not being as good as it usually should have been, or it couldn't compete with Pixar. So look, for The Boss Baby, I'm not necessarily expecting anything huge. I honestly think, just given the whole realm of everything coming out this particular month, that we're not going to see something actually, this movie's not going to crack $100 million domestically. It might even struggle worldwide, and it's just another one of the, another check on the loss bin for DreamWorks Animation. I feel like that is really sad, considering the fact that they're making some really awesome films these days. I know you're not really familiar with it, but do you want to say anything about DreamWorks Animation versus anything else, or do you want to just move on to the last film?
I completely agree with everything you just said.
Okay, we're going to move on to this. Okay, so like we said, one of the movies, who can actually name it? I feel like a lot of people, I don't know if people are sleeping on this film. I want to see it. It looks awesome. But we got Ghost in the Shell, 2017, Scarlett Johansson. Looks awesome. Oh my God. Looks so cool. But at the same time, I don't understand. I honestly don't understand why they decided to put this film in this particular time slot. This movie, to me, and just to me, seems like it would have done better putting it, a big budget movie, away from everything else, giving people a chance to breathe after, summer hit and everything else, and put this in the mid to late October time frame, where nothing even remotely close comes to the whole spectacle and, just the whole feel of the film and let people go see it and be a sleeper hit on its own. Maybe kind of taking a hit in terms of not a lot of people go to the movie theaters during that time, but it maybe, if it's good enough, making it something like I guess like a John Wick when they did that, where it becomes kind of a cult classic and it does really well on home video and actually makes its profit back in at least a little bit after the whole loss leader of actually putting it out on in theaters. I don't necessarily know why they're putting it up against so much competition, because as cool as it looks, I think it's so strange that it's just going to be lost in everything else coming around it.
I mean, people have been hating on it. You've seen that, right? People have been hating on the trailers. People have been hating on Scarlet. So, I guess I can see their point of views. I mean, I think the biggest hate of this film is probably the fact that they chose Scarlet and not a woman of Japanese hair. You know what I'm saying? You know where I'm going with this. So.
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, it does look great. I do like some of the trailers. It looks awesome. I think Scarlet will do a good job, and it's so far. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like it's still sort of staying on point with the original story, at least from what I've seen with the trailers.
I think so, and I just can kind of get in there. I don't necessarily know why people are so.
It's just one of those
up in
things,
arms
bro.
about...
It's like the whole Doctor Strange thing. Remember how people were pissed off that it was a woman playing?
Yeah. It's like we get into too many culture wars. Although I understand, I completely understand. Like, having Matt Damon being the hero in The Wall is not a good idea. I understand economically why they did that, but it's just a kind of a stupid idea.
Yeah.
Or Tom Cruise is the Last Samurais or something. Like,
I forgot about that film.
I understand why people hate that, but I mean, I feel like directing that hatred is not necessarily the best use of your ability or your time for something like Ghost of the Shell, especially given the story. She doesn't necessarily have to be of Asian descent in order to be in that film, and people might disagree. I don't seem to think that that's one way or the other, but that's not necessarily this video.
Yeah, definitely. I liked it, and I can see it doing, probably, if I had to predict, I think it'll have a good opening weekend. I'm thinking maybe between 60 to 90 mil. I would think so. And depending on the results, I think that could vary between the worldwide results. If it gets around that people hate the film, if it gets around that people don't like it, I feel like it could, opening weekend, it could have a strong opening weekend, but worldwide will vary. I don't see it hitting over $500 million. I don't see it going over 500 million. Maybe, if we're lucky, it could be one of those sleeper hits. We have sleeper hits every now and then, so maybe, but what do you think?
I mean, you're like, the one thing I like about having you on here, MJ, is you're a lot more bullish than I am. You're a lot more like hyped about like this. I get too cautious when it comes to predicting. I don't necessarily think this movie's going to crack 50 million opening weekend. I don't necessarily think this movie's going to crack 100 million domestically. That being said, I know, I really, like, it's not the movie, it's not the quality of any movie that comes out. It's really, really boils down to the fact that this is actually a film that's coming out at the tail end of a month that's very heavy with potential blockbusters. Potential blockbusters that people are very excited for, very 90s centric, people who have money right now. The younger people like us have money worth spending, want to go see a movie on a weekend. Oh, I'm going to watch that X-Men film, that Power Rangers film, that Beauty and the Beast film, like that type of stuff. So much money is going to be spent this weekend or this particular month that I don't think that Ghost in the Shell is just going to be lost in the wasteland. So less than 50 million. If I'm going to guess, $40 to $45 million opening weekend, less than 100 million. I'm going to say 95 million domestically. Japan and China, those movies, like, honestly, what I would like to see is a run similar to, not necessarily on point, but similar to that of Pacific Rim, back in like 2013, I think it was, where basically made a little bit over 100 million, basically a little bit over 400 million worldwide because of just how well it did in other countries, including Japan and China. So that's what I'd like to see. I feel like Paramount could be pretty happy with that outcome, that run for that particular film, and then we're just going to have to wait and see exactly what that means, whether there's going to be some kind of a sequel, what they have in store for it or something. Personally, I don't feel like that's happening. I just feel like it's not going to make that much money. Hopefully I'm wrong. Like I said, I go into these thinking like I'm going to be a little bit cautious of where I put these, but like I'm like you, I really kind of hope that every single month or like every single weekend really we just have nothing but a huge movie just opening up, big numbers, big spectacle, make it interesting, make it fun to cover, make it that people want to actually go and watch these videos, get kind of a little bit more of an insight to where they think certain movies are going to end up, and follow this stuff. It's just one of my stupid little passions that I actually got really into covering this stuff. So this is why I like making these videos for, not only just for myself, but anyone who wants to listen to, is the fact that I find this interesting. I know there are people out there who find this interesting and want to listen to this stuff. So, guys, that's our March Madness. It's really a March Madness type of box office month, honestly. Like, look, we do not have Marches this big, and I am excited. I am very, very excited to see exactly what we're going to get out of this month. And you can make sure to come here on this channel. I will be covering this stuff from week to week, predictions, box office news and stuff. I'll try at least every Monday, maybe more if things kind of pique my interest or something. But you can expect a box office video every single Monday from me because it's something that I really like covering. I'm not going to stop it anytime soon. But anyway, MJ, thank you so much for joining me on this. I don't necessarily get to do very many discussions in terms of box office, but you're always there for me, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really do this on my channel, but it's always cool to talk about something different other than Dragon Ball and anime. And it's always cool just to hear you talk, man.
I do kind of go long-winded on these conversations, but forgive me. Anyway, guys, like I said in the past, please make sure to go check out MJ if you like he said, Dragon Ball and anime stuff. He will give you ear orgasms. That's what he says, not me. That's him. Anyway, guys, yeah, please make sure to go check out MJ. Please make sure to rate, comment, subscribe. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to tell me if you want to see more videos like this, because I would love to cover it more. But until they start doing well, and before I actually start doing more of them, I want to see them actually start picking up, kind of put more of them out there. Anyway, guys, bye.